Public backlash against CEO Elon Musk's political positions.
Tesla just continues to disappoint. Is this all because of Elon Musk's other activities, or have the sort of, first adopters already filled their garages?
Sales are down 50% year over year. China's sales were down 50%.
In the last couple of months, though, the stock's just been obliterated.
Tesla taking the biggest hit, down 6%. That's not the only potential headache for Elon Musk. Leaders in Canada are going after his ventures specifically.
Elon Musk just got hit from a direction no one saw coming. Not from rivals in China or regulation in Europe, but from two of America's closest allies, Mexico and Canada. In just 8 weeks, Tesla didn't just lose some market share. It suffered a full-scale collapse. Federal rebates disappeared. Raw materials got locked down. Entire supply chains turned into strategic weapons. What started as a trade disagreement spiraled into a geopolitical crisis, and Tesla was caught in the middle. This isn't just a story of missed sales targets or bad press. It's a much bigger issue, a breakdown in global alliances, and Elon Musk may have walked right into the trap. Tesla's production lines are slowing, its stock is crashing, and the international partners that once fueled its rise are now helping dismantle it. So what happened? Why did Mexico and Canada turn against Tesla? How did Elon lose control of his global empire? And could this mark the start of the biggest economic fallout the US has seen in decades? Let's dive in. The Canadian shockwave. In early April 2025, a quiet press release from Canada's Ministry of Natural Resources barely made headlines. It talked about a temporary reassessment of EV rebate eligibility, a dry bureaucratic announcement. But within 48 hours, its true impact was clear. Tesla was being cut off. Canada canceled all pending rebates for Tesla vehicles. $43 million in incentives frozen overnight. Customers who had pre-ordered cars were left hanging. Dealerships in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal saw bookings vanish in real time. It wasn't just policy, it was a precision strike, and Tesla was the target. But Ottawa wasn't finished. Next came restrictions on the export of critical EV minerals, nickel, cobalt, lithium, materials Tesla relies on for its Nevada and Texas gigafactories. It wasn't just a price hike. Shipments stopped altogether. Canadian suppliers, under pressure from both provincial and federal leadership, redirected deals to European automakers. Tesla was stranded. Internally, Tesla executives scrambled. Musk publicly downplayed the threat, but behind the scenes, the company was in panic mode. Fast-tracking new contracts in South America and Africa, begging for exemptions, and trying to rework global logistics on the fly. But those fixes would take months, if not longer, and came with much greater risk. Meanwhile, Canadian politicians didn't hide their intentions. One MP, during a televised debate, put it bluntly. Tesla profited from Canada's resources while supporting policies that harmed us. Why should we help them now? Within 3 weeks, Tesla's deliveries in Canada dropped more than 60%. By the end of the quarter, sales were virtually non-existent, and Canada was just the start. Europe's strategic strike. Europe's move wasn't emotional. It was cold, calculated, and devastating. In late April, the European Commission unveiled a new tariff package aimed directly at US-built electric vehicles. The official line, economic self-defense. But the real target was obvious: Tesla. Model Ys arriving at European ports like Rotterdam were held up at customs. Pre-orders in France, Germany, and Italy were abruptly cancelled. Tesla's access to its second most important market had been effectively shut down overnight. But tariffs weren't even the most damaging blow. That came from politics. European governments started tweaking their subsidy programs. And suddenly, Tesla was no longer eligible for buyer incentives. The new rules favored local brands and domestic production, all under the banner of promoting regional stability. That meant Volkswagen, Stellantis, Renault, not Tesla. Practically overnight, buying a Tesla became significantly more expensive than choosing a European-made EV. And just as nationalism and anti-American sentiment were rising, Volkswagen made its move. With no tariffs, better pricing, and local supply chains, VW positioned itself as the smart, patriotic choice. And European consumers responded. Tesla wasn't just overpriced, it was outplayed. The fallout back home. Back in the US, the effects were immediate. Tesla's European exports tanked. Inventory piled up. Factory lines slowed. The company found itself boxed in on multiple fronts, and the cracks in Musk's empire were beginning to show. What started as subtle policy changes and quiet legislative tweaks has become a full-blown crisis. Mexico and Canada may have delivered the first punches, but the global dominoes are now falling. And Tesla, once a symbol of unstoppable American innovation, is suddenly looking very vulnerable. The question now isn't whether Tesla can bounce back, it's whether it can survive at all. Production cuts started quietly. Logistics teams saw the first wave of layoffs. But the real story was in the numbers. Tesla's revenue in Europe dropped nearly 40% in just one quarter. This isn't just a post-mortem. This is the story unfolding in real time. We're watching how global policy decisions lead to factory slowdowns and brand breakdowns step by step. If you're trying to stay ahead of it all, this is your playbook. Despite the warning signs, Elon Musk didn't back down. He pointed fingers at protectionism and blamed international bureaucracy. But what came next was something no CEO could control: a cultural revolt, and it started right at home. The brand that broke itself. Tesla's downfall didn't come from competition. It didn't come from tariffs or trade wars. It came from the very top, from Elon Musk himself. While Tesla was struggling, factories halting, markets closing, investors pulling out, Musk went on the offensive. Not behind the scenes, not with strategy, but publicly and loudly, online. It started during an interview where he was asked whether Tesla could survive the growing backlash from Canada and Europe. His response? If you don't like the volatility, don't buy Tesla. It wasn't reassurance, it was arrogance, and it sent shockwaves through Wall Street. Instead of calming tensions, Musk jumped on Twitter, mocking regulators, accusing Canada of economic treason, and claiming Europe was in bed with legacy automakers. He posted memes. He hurled insults. And in doing so, he didn't just push away governments, he pushed away his own customers. Videos began surfacing of Tesla owners vandalizing their own cars, spray painting trader tech across the hoods. Dealerships, especially in swing states, reported slashed ad budgets, mass cancellations, and protests out front. And it wasn't just one side of the aisle turning on Musk. Conservatives questioned his overseas manufacturing and erratic leadership. Progressives saw him as another billionaire drunk on power. Independents saw only chaos. Tesla fan forums, once digital shrines to Musk's vision, grew quiet. "We believed in the mission," one user posted, "but this isn't a mission anymore. It's a meltdown." Inside the company, board members urged caution. Investors begged for silence. But Musk doubled down. "People want the truth," he said. But what they got was volatility, vitriol, and paranoia. By the end of the quarter, Tesla's brand wasn't just tarnished, it was toxic. Loyalty had turned to resentment. The dream had become a meme. The revolt at home. While Musk was unraveling online, something more dangerous was building inside Tesla's own factories. It didn't start with protests. It started with quiet signs, a missed bonus here, an unscheduled overnight shift there. Supervisors avoided questions about potential layoffs. Morale started to crack. For years, Tesla workers had endured erratic hours, safety concerns, and breakneck deadlines because they believed in the mission. They were building the future. And they believed their sacrifice would one day pay off. But by spring 2025, that promise felt hollow. Stock options had tanked. Bonuses were postponed indefinitely due to market volatility. Pay raises disappeared. Hot meals in factories were cut. Counseling services were canceled. The message was clear. Loyalty no longer paid. That's when things broke. In Austin, workers on the battery line walked out mid-shift. In Sparks, Nevada, managers quietly started prepping severance packages. In Fremont, Tesla's first factory, anonymous videos surfaced of robots malfunctioning, missing safety guards, and exhausted technicians working 16-hour shifts. The clips went viral. Messages were scrawled on whiteboards and posted on break room walls. We built it. We deserve better. Elon got his billions. We got burnout. Workers weren't just angry. They felt betrayed. Layoffs began spreading through departments, battery production, logistics, software teams, all while rival companies like Rivian, Lucid, and Hyundai swooped in, offering better hours, higher pay, and respect. Tesla's production lines slowed. Attrition rates skyrocketed, and something that Elon Musk had kept at bay for years finally gained traction. Union organizers came back, this time with real momentum. Rallies broke out across Ohio, Michigan, and California. And this time, the chants weren't about the future. They were about survival. We built this. You broke it. It wasn't just frustration on the factory floor anymore. It was a full-blown revolt. And it was the one thing Elon Musk couldn't deflect with a tweet. You can fight governments. You can spar with investors. But when the very people who built your empire turn on you, the workers, the engineers, the loyal talent, there's nothing left to hold up the foundation. And just as internal loyalty crumbled, Tesla's global supply chain, once a marvel of efficiency and international cooperation, stopped picking up the phone. The breakdown of trust Tesla's supply chain had always been built on razor-thin timing, precision coordination, and trust between global partners. But when that trust cracked, the whole system stalled. It started in Canada. Key suppliers of nickel and cobalt, critical materials for EV batteries, were suddenly restricted by new export controls. The official line? A regulatory review. But everyone knew what it really was: political retaliation. Then came Europe. A major German electronics company, one of Tesla's top sensor suppliers, pulled out of its contract, citing credit exposure and strategic misalignment. A French aluminum supplier refused to ship without full payment up front. These weren't one-off issues. They were signs of a collapsing supply ecosystem. Tesla scrambled to replace the lost suppliers. But high-precision components aren't easy to swap. Testing new parts took weeks. Approval cycles slowed production. And for a company built on just-in-time manufacturing, that kind of delay was a disaster. Assembly lines crawled. Output dropped by nearly 30% in one quarter. Logistics teams raced to reroute shipments through friendlier countries, but customs delays and tariffs turned every delivery into a roll of the dice. Costs ballooned. Deadlines fell apart. The dream of global EV dominance was quickly becoming a logistical nightmare. While Tesla struggled, Volkswagen struck. As Tesla flailed, one company saw its moment: Volkswagen. Tesla may have pioneered the electric vehicle movement in Europe, but Volkswagen was quietly perfecting the strategy to take it over. And by the time Tesla noticed, it was already too late. For nearly a decade, Volkswagen had been laying the groundwork. Massive investments in battery plants across Europe. A standardized EV platform, the MEB, that worked across all their brands. A supply chain fine-tuned with typical German precision. While Tesla stuck with a premium-only pricing model and expanded vertically, Volkswagen did what Tesla couldn't: make electric cars affordable at scale. With their MEB platform, Volkswagen could build compact hatchbacks, SUVs, and everything in between, all from the same parts and production lines. No need for separate platforms, factories, or engineering teams. That kind of modular efficiency meant one thing: they could beat Tesla on price, without sacrificing quality or scale. And just when Tesla was being hit with tariffs and subsidies were being stripped away, Volkswagen landed the finishing blow. Europe turns the page. As Europe pushed back on US EV imports with new tariffs and stopped subsidies for Tesla buyers, Volkswagen didn't just benefit, they filled the vacuum. Suddenly, to the average European consumer, Tesla wasn't cutting edge. It was expensive, American, and politically controversial. Volkswagen? homegrown, subsidized, easier to service, and now the safer, smarter choice. While Musk raged online, accusing European leaders of economic sabotage, Volkswagen said nothing. They didn't need to. The public had already chosen sides. Tesla had become a political punching bag. Volkswagen simply handed over the keys to a cheaper, more stable option. The numbers told the story. By Q2 2025, Tesla's European sales had plunged over 38%. Volkswagen's e-Fay registrations up more than 42% year over year. The Tesla Model 3 and Model Y, once the go-to EVs for middle-class Europeans, were now trailing behind the Volkswagen ID.4, the Cupra Born, and Audi's Q4 e-tron. And it wasn't just about who sold more cars. Volkswagen had something Tesla didn't: total control. They owned their battery factories. They sourced raw materials locally. They met new EU sustainability standards with ease. Tesla? Still importing parts. Still tangled in trade wars. Still tweeting. Tesla was waiting on aluminum from tariff-heavy markets and scrambling for battery materials from suppliers who no longer wanted to sell to them. Volkswagen didn't just beat Tesla in design or innovation. They beat them where it mattered most: in geography, regulation, cost efficiency, and trust. As Tesla fought to hold on to its shrinking market share in Europe, Volkswagen was already looking ahead. Plans were underway to expand into Latin America and deepen their EV presence in North America. But Europe wasn't the only blind spot for Tesla. The rise of BYD, China's silent takeover. While Tesla burned bridges, China built a global empire. In the West, many still saw Tesla as the face of the EV revolution. But in China, that illusion ended years ago. And by 2025, it was dead and buried. Because while Tesla was caught up in trade wars, public backlash, and internal chaos, BYD, Build Your Dreams, was executing a flawless global takeover. Backed by the Chinese government, BYD wasn't just another automaker, it was a vertically integrated powerhouse. While Tesla depended on international suppliers for crucial components, BYD built everything in-house, from batteries and chips to body parts and software. That level of control wasn't just efficient. In a world of trade disputes and supply chain disruption, it made BYD nearly unstoppable. So when Canada and Europe cut off Tesla's access to nickel, cobalt, and lithium, BYD simply tapped into China's domestic reserves. When US-China tensions threatened global supply lines, BYD didn't flinch. It had already prepared. But their most brilliant move? Their export strategy. As Tesla's prices surged due to tariffs and shipping costs, BYD flooded global markets, Asia, Africa, Latin America, with affordable, reliable EVs. They offered performance, low maintenance, and value that Tesla couldn't match. Governments responded fast. Brazil, Thailand, and South Africa rolled out tax incentives specifically for BYD models. Local governments rewrote contracts to prefer Chinese EVs in their fleets. Charging infrastructure and mass transit partnerships followed. And in a twist of irony, BYD started showing up in the very regions that once celebrated Tesla. In Canada and Europe, BYD secured fleet deals with public agencies. In Mexico, they opened negotiations to expand manufacturing. And in the US, BYD didn't even have to sell cars directly. Their dominance in battery production and electric buses was already shaping municipal transit systems. Tesla's once untouchable image as the pioneer of EV innovation was quietly being replaced by something far more dangerous: irrelevance. While Musk battled critics on social media and fired off tweets at world leaders, BYD kept building. They quietly surpassed Tesla in global EV deliveries. They locked in long-term mineral deals in Africa. They earned the trust of emerging economies that Tesla never paid attention to. And then came the shift, a psychological one. BYD was no longer catching up. It was leading. It became the brand that governments trusted, that companies wanted to partner with, and that consumers around the world could actually afford. Tesla pioneered the dream, but BYD mass-produced it. The final blow, the Saudi shift. Just when it seemed Tesla might have one loyal partner left, it didn't. Because the Saudis flipped, and Tesla never saw it coming, Elon Musk had long assumed that Saudi Arabia, especially through its public investment fund, PIF, would remain a silent supporter of Tesla's rise. After all, the Saudis had invested heavily in the EV and clean energy markets, often choosing to overlook Musk's controversial behavior. But in 2025, that quiet support turned into strategic betrayal. It began with Lucid Motors, a direct Tesla rival. The PIF already held a major stake in Lucid, but as Tesla stumbled, they moved fast. The Saudis injected another $3 billion into Lucid, accelerated factory expansions within Saudi Arabia, and rolled out major tax incentives to attract global automakers into partnerships with Lucid's battery and software divisions. At the same time, Tesla's supply chains were breaking down. Lithium, nickel, and rare earth metals were now being routed through Saudi intermediaries, under new contracts that deprioritized or outright excluded American buyers. The Saudis had shifted. They weren't just funding the EV revolution anymore, they were strategically weaponizing it. And they weren't being subtle about it. While Tesla was caught in the crossfire of global politics, market chaos, and internal dissent, Volkswagen was dominating Europe. BYD was taking over the world, and Saudi Arabia was quietly rewriting the rules. Tesla didn't just lose market share, it lost control of the future it helped invent. Behind closed doors, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, PIF, was quietly assembling a new global power center for electric vehicles. This new axis of EV development wasn't just about Lucid Motors. It also brought in Canadian mineral suppliers and Chinese battery tech firms like KL. The objective was clear: cut Tesla out, control the future of battery production, and offer the world a cleaner, better funded, and more stable alternative. It was more than a business pivot. It was a symbolic break. Saudi Arabia wasn't just moving on from Tesla. It was building what came after. The Great Trade Reversal. The world had changed. The United States, the original architect of the modern EV movement, was being written out of the script. Once, the US led the charge. Tesla was the face of innovation. Silicon Valley was the engine. Washington promised dominance in the race for clean transportation. But by 2025, that vision had unraveled. A new trade order was emerging, and the US was being left behind. Canada, once America's closest ally, shifted its mineral exports to Europe and China. Germany and France rewrote their EV strategies to shut out US brands. Latin America inked new clean energy deals with China. Even neutral countries like Australia began to distance themselves from US manufacturers. And the ultimate irony, the very global trade system that helped Tesla rise, open markets, shared minerals, international manufacturing, was now the same system locking the US out. The world kept building electric vehicles, just not with America. New economic alliances formed. China, Europe, and Canada now dominated EV manufacturing, raw material extraction, and technology licensing. Meanwhile, the US and Mexico, battered by tariff wars and diplomatic fallouts, found themselves increasingly isolated. American companies faced rising import taxes, fewer financing options, and shrinking trust from global buyers. Tesla wasn't just losing market share. It had become a cautionary tale of how fast an industry can turn on a leader that stumbles. From market leader to global outcast America, once the world's EV capital, was now the country left out of every new deal. Supply chains were rebuilt, alliances were redrawn, investment capital fled the chaos, and this wasn't just a corporate disaster anymore. It had become a national one. Tesla's collapse wasn't just the downfall of a company. It was the moment the world stopped waiting for US leadership and started moving forward without it. And then came the financial aftershock. While Tesla workers were protesting in the streets, another crisis was unfolding behind the scenes, one that touched every corner of the American economy. Market mayhem, Tesla's fall, sparked a $1 trillion shockwave. In just 6 weeks, Tesla lost over $135 billion in market value. But the real story? It wasn't just about the number. It was about the ripple effect. Because Tesla wasn't just a tech company, it was a symbol, a bellwether, and a foundation stone in the portfolios of millions of everyday Americans. It wasn't just risk-happy traders holding Tesla stock. Pension funds were in. ETFs were in. Government-backed investments were in. So when Tesla began to nosedive, it didn't just hurt Elon Musk. It wiped out retirement savings. By late March, the Dow dropped more than 9%. The S&P 500 lost over $1.2 trillion in total value. Analysts compared it to a canary in the coal mine, a warning that the entire tech sector was under siege. Banks began tightening credit. Real estate deals collapsed. Mortgage approvals plummeted. For the first time in years, average Americans, teachers, nurses, middle managers, began to worry about their 401ks, about their job security, about whether the dollar was as strong as it seemed. And the pain didn't stop at Wall Street. Thousands of businesses tied to Tesla, parts suppliers, software vendors, clean energy contractors, were blindsided. Forecasts were slashed. Hiring froze. Even state governments that had offered Tesla generous tax breaks were now running the numbers and realizing just how much they had lost. Meanwhile, Elon Musk stayed defiant. In public, he mocked critics and blamed foreign economic sabotage. Behind the scenes, Tesla was in full-blown triage. Emergency funding efforts failed, lines of credit dried up, insurance premiums soared, and the markets kept falling. The US economy, already weakened by inflation and international trade disputes, found itself slipping into freefall. This wasn't just the collapse of a brand. This was the unraveling of a vision and a warning to the rest of the world. When power is built on trust, and that trust is lost, even giants fall fast. Tesla's downfall wasn't just another headline. It had become a contagion. And the worst part? It still wasn't over. But the real nightmare wasn't what America lost at home. It was what the rest of the world had decided to leave behind. The end of influence. This wasn't just the collapse of Tesla. It was the beginning of America's economic exile. For over a century, the United States shaped the rules of global trade. Its companies led industries. Its currency anchored deals. Its innovations set the pace for the future. But in 2025, something shifted. The fall of Tesla didn't just bruise American pride. It broke its influence. Foreign governments that once leaned on US EV innovation began looking elsewhere. Canada signed long-term contracts with Chinese and European battery suppliers. The EU passed resolutions to supercharge subsidies for local EV makers, while jacking up tariffs on American imports. In Asia, Tesla's former partners moved on to BYD and Hyundai. Global trade routes were being redrawn, without the US in mind. Shipping contracts, mining rights, green energy investments. They were all being led by coalitions in Berlin, Shanghai, and Riyadh. The US went from essential to replaceable. And the final blow? It wasn't about money. It was about symbolism. In May, a major international clean energy summit took place in Singapore. For the first time ever, the United States wasn't invited. Instead, countries like Canada, China, Brazil, the EU, and South Korea signed a historic agreement to accelerate EV development and infrastructure. Without the US at the table, America hadn't just lost market share. It lost something far more valuable: trust. And in the global economy, trust is everything. What comes after collapse? Now, standing in the wreckage of its most iconic tech company, the US faces a harsh question. What now? Behind closed doors in Washington, leaders were debating three options, and none of them were easy. Option 1, reconciliation. Rebuild bridges with allies. Restore trade deals. Roll back tariffs. It would mean reaching out to Canada, the EU, and Asia, and making painful political concessions. It would also mean admitting failure, right as an election season heats up. But if done quickly enough, this could bring back some global stability. Option 2, double down on nationalism. Go all in on domestic EV manufacturing. Ramp up US-based mining. Pour billions into new factories and supply chains. It's bold, it's dramatic, but it takes time, and time is running out. Factories don't appear overnight. Lithium doesn't mine itself. This would be a long road with a steep cost. Option 3. Strike deals with authoritarian states. Desperate for quick results, some officials floated a third path. Make fast-track deals with countries like Saudi Arabia or Venezuela. Trade access to key materials for political and economic leverage. It would be fast, it would be effective, and it would be risky. Relying on unstable regimes could expose the US to new vulnerabilities, the kind it hasn't faced in decades. No matter which path is taken, there's no clean way forward. And every day without action, it just makes things worse. This isn't just about trade anymore, or even about Tesla. It's about America's place in the world. The electric vehicle revolution is moving forward, with or without the US. And right now, the rest of the world isn't waiting. Because what's really gone isn't just Tesla. It's trust. And once trust is gone, there's no quick comeback. So what do you think? Was this the breaking point? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this, hit like, smash that subscribe button, and stay tuned. We're just getting started.